Hi, welcome back. So, as promised, this is going to be a 15-minute seated lying down yoga sequence. I've also done a 15-minute standing yoga sequence as well. So, depending on how you are feeling, you can either just do the standing sequence or just do the seated sequence, or maybe even put them both together for a longer yoga practice. For this one, I've got all the props out. I'm actually sitting on a rolled up blanket, but you might have a yoga block that you find comfortable to sit on as well. I've also got a yoga belt. It's a very long strap, but if you don't have one of these, I'd recommend maybe pausing the video and scooting up and getting a dressing gown cord or something, or a belt. It's just to make one of the stretches towards the end of the class just a little bit more accessible, really, so that you're not putting extra strain into other parts of the body. But if you don't have any props, that's absolutely fine as well. So it is a short practice, and we are just staying fairly low level for this. And the reason behind this is because sometimes you just don't feel like moving from a seated position through a vinyasa, through a down dog to standing. And just, I don't know about you, but my body sometimes just really doesn't want to move that way anymore. So that's why I thought I'd do a couple of separate practices, and then you can choose whether or not you'd like to link them together or not. We are going to start this sequence seated. Like I say, I've got my rolled up blanket. You can sit on a block. You don't have to sit cross-legged. You can sit on your heels or even with your legs extended in front of you. Any comfortable position. This posture is known as easy seated pose. But obviously, if it's not an easy position for you to get into, then just find a posture that works. So we're just going to rest the hands on the knees or in the lap and just take a few breaths to center ourselves, settle the mind, just quieten down the mind a little bit. Relax into our breathing. See if we can draw the inhale to be the same length as the exhale. Maybe as we breathe in, we can imagine finding some space in our body between our muscles, our joints, our bones. And as we exhale, we can imagine softening into these spaces that the inhale breath creates. Yoga is primarily a practice of the breath. So even if we sat here for 15 minutes, purely focusing on the rhythm of our breathing, relaxing our body and quietening our mind, then we have done a full yoga practice. However, we are going to bring some movement in. So when we've taken a few breaths, I'm just going to turn around for ease of reference. And I'm actually going to remove my blanket as well and pop it to one side. So in your seated position, we're going to take our hands behind us and draw the knuckles down towards the earth. So we're getting this lovely stretch down through the back, across the shoulders, and by dipping the chin to the chest as well, we get an extra little squeeze going on. Lifting those arms up as far as our mobility allows. And if you even want to, you can hinge from the hips and fold forward if that's somewhere that you feel like traveling to today. Releasing those arms, rolling the shoulders back and down. Again, just scooting myself around just for ease. And we're going to take our right hand and just rest it to the side of our head, maybe even reaching the fingers of the left hand out to the side. A little gentle stretch down through the side of the neck here. And as we inhale and come back to center, just softly repeating that on the opposite side. Extending away with the fingers of that right hand, gently drawing down using the effects of gravity and the weight of your hand and arm to draw your left ear towards your left shoulder. Fabulous. Coming back to center now, and we're going to come over onto all fours, stacking our wrists underneath our shoulders and our knees underneath the hips. As we breathe in, we lift that tailbone towards the ceiling, drop the belly to the earth, draw the shoulders back and down, maybe lifting the gaze. And as we exhale, starting the movement from the tailbone and just returning the opposite way, lifting the spine to the ceiling and tucking chin to chest. This is known as our cat-cow. And it's a really lovely way of moving to incorporate, or rather to remind you, to let your breath guide your movement. We inhale, we travel one way, and we exhale, and we move in the opposite direction. Returning ourselves into this tabletop position, this neutral spine. We're going to take our right leg out behind us, but keep the toes to the floor. See if we can level the hips, push that heel away. There's going to be several options in this next posture. So we can stay here, part one, if you will. We can extend our left arm in front of us, tickling the stems of the plant. We can return the left hand to the floor and lift that right leg. Or we can incorporate leg and arm. So find where you want to be today in this posture. Think about the breath, think about leveling those hips, pulling the core in as well. And then returning hand and knee to the floor. Find that neutral spine, maybe even rolling yourself once more through a cat-cow. Before extending your left leg out behind you. So to begin with, we just push the heel away, toes to the floor. Such a good stretch down the back of the calf. And then from here, we work to see how it feels on this side. Maybe we just want to extend the right arm in front. Or maybe we just want to lift the left leg. Or with the control around the core, we might feel able to extend arm and leg. Before returning hand, knee to the floor, bottom to heel, chin to chest in a modified child's pose. I say modified child's pose because there are quite a few options to this. And again, if you've got knee issues, then this pose is just not going to be comfortable for you. You can make it more comfortable by putting that folded blanket behind you and maybe not coming back as far. Or if you have quite a bit of movement, you might want to take your knees wide, drop your bottom to heel, and draw yourself towards the earth. As with all the postures in yoga, they are completely adaptable to the individual. Okie dokie, let's work our way back onto all fours. We are going to extend that left leg behind us again, pushing the heel away. And then we're going to see if we can take the right leg behind us. So we're coming into a plank position. If this feels a little bit too much, we're just going to drop the knees, so the knees are behind the bottom, in a half plank, pulling that belly in, staying strong through your center. So we are either here or we are here. Wherever we are, we're going to take it into a little downward facing dog. We're not staying here too long. Fingers are wide, feet are planted at hip width, lifting tailbone to ceiling to get that length down the spine. From here, either dropping down to the knees, finding this half plank before sitting back into child's pose. Or if you want to, we can come downward dog into our plank, to the knees, into child's pose. Let's just try that little flow one more time. So we come into downward facing dog. We're working our way to the floor, either through full plank, half plank, back into a child's pose. Excellent, good work. Let's take the weight off the wrists now. So either sitting back on the heels or finding any other comfortable position that works for you. Give those wrists a little bit of a stretch out here. And then we're just going to drop over onto the side of the bottom and bring ourselves into a seated position. So we're going to have the knees bent, the feet planted, probably about hip distance, knees over ankles and in line with the hips. So we can feel our sharp sit bones on the mat. From here, all we're going to do is just roll back so we can rest on the more fleshy part of the derriere. Pull that belly button in so we're nice and strong through our center. The shoulders are soft. Reaching our arms forward. Now, if this is too much, if you're feeling it too much, we don't want to feel it in the back at all, but if you're finding this and you're shaking too much, you can even hold behind the thighs if you want to. Otherwise, we're finding this posture. You might even be able to toe tap. And if you are finding this a complete walk in the park, we can bring our knees up and find this pose. This is called boat pose, Navasana boat pose. See if we can hold it just for one more breath. And then cross our legs over in front. Wrap the arms around the legs and give ourselves a little bit of a hug. Let's try that again. So we come into our foundation of the posture. Feet hip distance, knees not flaring out to the side. Roll it back. Relax the shoulders. Open across the chest. See how we feel in this pose. Can we toe tap? Can we lift the legs? Can we breathe and smile and hold it for 3, 2, and 1. Crossing those legs over and giving yourself a little bit of a hug in this pose. Okay, we're going to come all the way down to the floor now. Before we do, grab a hold of your dressing gown belt or your yoga belt. And we're going to slowly bring ourselves down with care, keeping those knees bent, keeping those feet about hip distance apart, and then just drawing the heels in towards the bottom. So the rest of our postures are lying down, pushing into the soles of the feet and maybe into the palms of the hands too. We're just going to tilt the pelvis. So we're going to tilt it one way and then tilt it the opposite way. So you'll feel the lower part of your spine lifting away from the floor and then pressing into the floor. And when you find a position that feels somewhere in the middle of the two, that is where we stay. Again, we focus on pulling that belly button in, and then as we inhale, we lift the hips off the mat, squeezing these glutes, coming into a bridge pose here. See if we can hold it for 3, 2, and 1. Slowly lowering down, rippling that spine all the way to the floor. Let's just do that one more time. So we push through the feet, push through the hands if you want to. We've found the neutral position of our spine and we just lift those hips, squeeze the glutes, breathing deeply. Just holding for a breath or two before again slowly rippling that spine all the way down towards the earth. And when we get back down towards the floor, we are going to take our right knee, draw it in towards our chest, and then from here, and again, you don't have to use the belt if you don't want to, but if you do have it, wrapping this belt around the sole of your foot and lifting that foot up towards the ceiling. All the belt is doing is acting as an extension of your arms so that it allows you to keep your upper body beautifully soft and relaxed on the mat, so that you can focus on finding a little bit of length down the back of this right leg. So if you can, keep your upper arms on the floor, take a breath in and push that belt away. Now you might be in this position, and again, this is where the belt is so useful because there's no way your arms would be able to reach your foot in this posture, but you're pushing the belt away, you're finding some space as you breathe in. And then as you exhale, you might be able to softly draw that leg in a little bit closer. And then you stay here and you take a few breaths, feeling that stretch ease off possibly. And as you breathe out, you might be able to encourage that leg in. So we just work with where we are, how it feels. From here, we're going to take our right ankle, let's take that belt off, right ankle over our left knee. So coming into this Reclined pigeon pose. I've just put my belt down to here. You can use your right hand to push the right knee away, or you can even lift that left foot off the floor and thread your hands behind your left thigh. So our feet are flexed, the heels pushing away from us. Again, the shoulders are nice and soft. We breathe in and we exhale to see if we've got any room to move. And if we haven't, then we just stay in this posture. This is a lovely stretch for the outside of that hip. I say lovely. I think that's probably a very personal thing. One person's lovely might be someone else's absolutely hideous. Okay, let's return our left foot to the floor. Take our right foot to the floor. We're going to hug the left knee in to begin with. Just give it a little hug. And then we locate our belt again. And we wrap it underneath the sole of that left foot. And we lift it towards the ceiling. Push that heel away. Obviously, don't come too far. We keep the upper arms on the mat and we breathe in. And as we exhale, slowly encouraging that leg in. Don't go too far. There's nothing worse than a hamstring that decides to go ping. We really don't want that. So we just listen to the body, let the breath guide the movement, just coming as far as you feel able to today. And then we're going to drop that left ankle over the right knee. Pop this to one side, using maybe your left hand to the inside of that thigh. Maybe even drawing your right knee in towards you as you thread your arms behind your right thigh, finding that stretch on the outside of your left hip into the glute a little bit as well here. Actively pushing your left knee away from you. You can even begin to close your eyes a little bit now if you want, as we drop both feet back down towards the floor, touching our knees together and then working our feet together so the insides of our feet are touching and our legs are touching as well. Just resting our hands on the belly, maybe one hand on the belly, one hand on the heart, closing the eyes, listening to our breathing. And then dropping both knees over towards the right-hand side. So coming into a gentle twist here. You might want to release the arms up into this cactus arm position, or even reach them behind the head, or you can let them rest onto the belly. As we breathe in, so we pull our belly in, so we use our core to lift the knees, and then drop the knees over towards the left-hand side. And again, play around with that arm position if you want to. Cactus arms, arms overhead, hands stay where they are. Turning the gaze the opposite way to the legs. And then inhale, slowly drawing it back to center. Keeping your knees touching, just walking your feet to the outside edges of the mat. And this has the effect of fully flattening your spine on the floor. Relax your hands down either side of your body. Maybe this is a position that you can find some stillness in at the end of the class. Alternatively, you might find it more comfortable to extend your legs. Just take your feet to the outer edges of the mat. Let your ankles relax so your toes and your feet become all floppy. For me, I'd much prefer having my knees bent. And if your knees are bent, remember to let one knee fall into the other knee so that you are fully supported. Whatever position you end this class in, just ensure that you feel fully supported by the earth. So that as we find some stillness in our body, this translates to stillness in our mind. And we can take a deep breath in and feel that rise of the belly. And as we exhale, feel yourself sinking a little further into the floor. Feel free to stay here as long as you wish today. You can remain lying down or you can return to a seated posture. And of course, you can always add this video onto the standing one or vice versa, depending on how you feel. Thank you so much for joining me on the mat, and I will see you again very soon.